Well, there it was, Flames fans. One of those two had to come away without continuing on with that 4-game win streak. Unfortunately, it was Ash's team there. Brought in Ash, who he can represent both sides. We're not
Yeah,
sure who he's picking for this game.
I'm a Flamers fan, so
Flames. Say that again.
I'm a Flamers fan.
Flamers fan. Jeez,
I like to
how long
call
did you
Ash our
practice that
buddy
in there?
with the disgusting shirt.
Yeah, I mean the hat's cool.
Yeah, I was gonna flip it, but my Flames T-shirt's in the wash tonight, so.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I have a plethora. Figured I'd better wear the Flames hub
Yeah,
shirt
no,
there.
you gotta represent it. But I tell you what, that was an exciting game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it was fun.
yeah, sometimes
It
you
was-
see a score of like 1-0 or 2-0 or something like that, and you're like, probably not a very exciting one to talk about or exciting one to watch. But man, that one gave me vibes of some of those Dallas and Calgary games from a couple of years ago in the playoffs, where it was like just
Mark
an
and
absolute
Edgar,
goalie
yeah.
show, and like there was a lot of high danger chances. Especially, I found the Rangers in the first half had just a metric fuck ton of
Yeah, I mean that was the thing. That's the one thing that really stuck out with me is Markstrom kept the game close early, but then Shesterkin kicked it up a notch because it could have been a blowout early for the Rangers, but because Markstrom kept it close, the Flames had lots of chances to take the lead, and Shesterkin just played his butt off. It was a great goaltender battle for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, like I was saying, it kind of gave me the Ottinger and Markstrom vibes from a couple of years ago, where it was like both teams were getting their chances and the goalies were just like, nope.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. It was a really fun game. I really liked it.
Lots of chirpiness too, which you don't see very often in like Eastern games against the Flames, right? So
Yeah, because
although it's kind of happened a little bit lately with the whole Fox thing.
But yeah, I mean, even Panarin got his panties in a wad there for a little bit. So
Pospisil fucking pisses people off. It's fun.
yeah, no,
He's
I
a
like
fun
him. I like
player to
the
watch.
edge to his game. It's been nice to see Kuzmenko kind of come out of his shell and from a Rangers fan, I've really been impressed with the steps in his game that Lafreniere has made this year. And I've really been impressed with I mean, he's just been, I think he's a guy that he may not live up to the, 170 points a season like he had in Quebec. Steps in it. But
I agree.
I think he could be a Elias Lindstrom plus type of player. He's become a lot better two-way player. And obviously his offense has picked up this year. But the one guy that I really think needs a change of scenery watching the Rangers is Kakko. He had such a great playoff, and you just expected so much of him. At least the Rangers didn't extend him like they did Mangiapane, like the Flames did Mangiapane after a great playoff and overpay him. But Kakko really needs a change of scenery.
And I don't even really mind his game. Like, I haven't watched a whole lot of him this year, but there's been other years that I've had a lot more time to watch a lot more hockey, aside from just the Flames. And I don't mind. In fact, I kind of like Kakko's game, to be honest. I think that it's hard for a player to break out when they're stuck behind Kreider and Panarin and like you can't get like all of that like prime deployment when you're stuck behind like bona fide superstars or like guys like Kreider, who maybe might not be a bona fide superstar, but the guy can score 30-40 goals like.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, Kakko really showed that basically the Rangers for one goal, right? He drove to the net, had speed, had strength, and it led to the goal. And that's the way he played in the playoffs, and he's just not played that way all season. And I'm sure the coaching change hasn't helped, much like Kuzmenko got in the doghouse. Kakko's been sitting a lot. So it's just I don't know, one of those things with him, but I think he needs to change the scenery. But I don't know if the Flames are it. I know there was some talk maybe earlier in the year that the Flames were kind of looking that way, but I don't think he's it for the Flames. I don't see a good fit there.
No.
Yeah. We've got a lot of potential trade partners, but the Devils one seems to be the one that really makes the most sense as
You know, I,
far as
I,
return
I was talking
and
with a buddy
pieces.
of mine earlier today who's actually he lives down here in Texas, and he's a Vancouver fan. So we have a stake on pretty much every Flames Vancouver game, I think. So, um, but the one thing we were thinking about with New Jersey, this New Jersey team last year kind of reminded me of the team under what's his name? Who's the coach? Not Gullitson, the one before that. Hartley, when the Flames had that good year under Hartley,
Yeah.
and the Flames management thought the rebuild was over.
Yeah.
That's where the Devils were. I thought the Devils overachieved last year, and the worst thing I think the Devils can do is overreact to the fact that they've actually taken a step back, but they're probably more on their progression this year than where they should be, as to where they were last year. And I don't know that the Devils will panic. I hope they. I don't. I mean, I hope they do, because that'll help the Rangers. But from a hockey fan, I don't want to see it, because I know what that does to your team when you have a good year that you're unexpected to have, and your management thinks that that's the season. Oh, we are, we're ready. Here's the rebuild. We're done. And then they push the panic button, and then you get the Gullitson years where you had another, one good year out of the 5 that he was there or whatever it was, and then you're sucking. But I think the Devils just overachieved last year. The other thing with, I watched a little bit of Devils games too, just because they play the Rangers so much, and they're like, I try to watch enough hockey earlier in the night than later in the night, because I can't stay up that late anymore where
Makes
I am.
sense.
But the one thing with the Devils is their goaltending isn't anywhere near where it was a year ago.
Yeah. Well, they need a goalie, and honestly, I like Schmid for their future, but I think it's going to take a couple of years. And honestly, I don't really think, I'm not sure if I agree with you just on the fact that, they overachieve. I don't think they overachieved. I think they kind of are what they were last year, but they're missing Hamilton, and they've missed Hamilton since the second month of the year. And they've missed Siegenthaler for half the year, and they have no defense, and they've missed Jack Hughes for like 2 months combined of the years. They've just had really unfortunate injuries to their main players. Their big minute munching players and their most dynamic player. But I think that they have a really deep forward group and some pretty good defense. I just don't think I'm not sure if they're a contender when they're healthy, but I think they're kind of a
No, but
second round.
they're on that path, and I guess that's what I'm cautioning against, because they've got injuries, they've got some issues. Like I said, I don't think their goalies are playing as good as they did a year ago, but it's so easy for management to pull panic or push panic buttons when stuff like this happens, instead of being patient and realizing, well, let's see if we can't get in the playoffs and see what happens, but let's not destroy it for just because we're not where we thought we'd be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's the perfect time for them to panic, right? Being 4 points out of a wild card,
Yeah.
and still thinking that they have a legitimate chance to, get into round 2 or 3. Which, I'll be honest with you, I thought they would be looking a lot better this year in the standings than they are currently. So
Yeah.
I
And I
think
think
they have
they
to
would
take it as
be
a
if
learning
they
year and
weren't.
just move on to the next year personally.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll take it if they go into panic mode.
Yeah, because they'll overpay like Vancouver did for Kuzmenko, which is great.
Yeah, Dom. Jack Hughes is quite a stud.
Yeah, no,
And I've
absolutely.
said this a lot throughout his career. He is such a dynamic player, but he does this thing where he doesn't look behind him, and he's small, right? Like, he's a tiny hockey player, and he doesn't look behind him when he goes to fetch pucks, and then he gets like nudged slightly and then misses 2 months.
Yeah.
And
speaking of lack of awareness, what I didn't catch any update on Peltier. I saw him go down.
Upper
yeah, it
body
looked
again,
like the
and he
same
didn't come back.
shoulder. It looked
Yeah.
like the same shoulder. I could be wrong though. It was kind of a Adam Fox. I think it was Fox that. Oh no, sorry, it was Jacob Trouba
Truba.
that
Yeah.
that like shoved him into the boards, and I don't think it would have been nearly as bad as it was if it was just like if there was glass there, but it was right next to the bench. So he like folded over a little bit the bench and fucked his shoulder up and fell and left. I'm hoping it was more precautionary because there's no reason to, make sure you're a guy who's getting fourth line minutes comes back out if you're worried that he might be injured long term.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's precautionary, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that because it looked eerily similar to like just how he got up holding his shoulder looked eerily similar to
Yeah, and I mean, an obvious size mismatch between Trouba and Pelts, right? Like, holy shit,
Yeah.
that's what do you figure the weight difference is? It's got to be a good 50 pounds, right?
At least easily. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Trouba,
we already know what Trouba can do. I mean, he's a wrecker out there. He's a cannonball when he's on. So
and he
Yeah,
has
and
this
yeah,
reputation for being dirty, and he does have like a dirty hit or two a year, I think. But
there was nothing.
there was
questionable
nothing dirty
that.
about that. And there was one last year where he rocked Kadri, but it was just like Kadri walking, like skating directly into Trouba's shoulder without looking. And like sometimes he's really good at catching guys when they're not looking at him, even though he's like directly in front of them.
Yeah,
So,
I don't quite get that. Who was the color guy today? Was that Rudy
no,
on the thing?
Greg Millen. Yeah.
Okay, I'm surprised the Rudy haters aren't jumping on Millen because I thought Millen made a very good point that Peltier really needs to be a little more aware of where he is on the ice when those sorts of things are happening. Get a little closer to the board and you don't go flying into him.
That's one of the things I like about Greg is he's actually got some really good takes, right?
Yeah.
Just honest opinion and it's mostly accurate.
But if Rudy makes a comment like that, the fans are all over him. Oh, he hates the Flames. He hates the Flames.
Well, I'm not a Rudy fan, but I think that Rudy makes just as good takes as Millen does. It's just he spends 3/4 of the time talking about his career instead of the game, right? That's what pisses me off. Like, I don't care about an insignificant save you made 30 years ago, dude. We're looking like we're watching this game, and whenever like one of the other guys tries to bring up one of Millen's plays from years ago, he's like, "Oh, don't worry about that. Let's like watch the game that we're watching now," right?
Well, to be honest, Rudy at least played in games that meant something. Millen didn't.
Yeah, I was going to say
That's true.
There's a stark difference between the two careers.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, but also like there's a time and place about talking about your career, and there's a 3-on-1 happening. Maybe talk about the game while there's something exciting happening.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, if you ever get a chance to listen to the Rangers broadcast, Sam Rosen just does a heck of a job with the play-by-play.
Yeah,
I like listening to him. But Rick Ball's really good for the Flames. I think he's.
I like Rick. I think he does a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Rick Ball. I missed him last year when he had that emergency last year for a couple games there. It was I can't remember who took over for him, but it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Who's actually kind of been all right this year? On the radio, there's been a couple games where Megan Mickelson has been off doing something else, and Corey Sarich has stepped into doing a little bit of color, and he's not fantastic. I mean, it's not his job, right? He's not fantastic at it, but when he gets into giving his insight, He kind of
Yeah.
stumbles over his words a little bit, but when he gives his insight, I really like it because there's still players in the league that he played with or against, and his takes are still relevant because the league isn't so much different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and actually, I think he's better on radio than he is on TV. He just looks so nervous when he gets the camera in front of him.
Yeah,
What are you talking about?
he's got a
He's
face for
gorgeous.
radio, that's for sure.
He's gorgeous. What do you mean? Come on.
That
Come on.
might be
I
it.
can. I mean, I could only dream to look like Sarchi.
Yeah,
No.
and he's wearing makeup too. That's the scary part.
I mean, if I was eating as many pucks as he did, you know,
Absolutely.
I'd be happy to look like that too.
What do you think of Shillington tonight?
I mean, he stepped up his physical game quite a bit. He was really engaged. You know, he drove the net a couple of times. He had some nice plays.
You know, the one
I
play
think it was one of his best games so far since he's come back.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was. You know, the one play that really I had a laugh when Mangiapane had that 2-on-1. You'd think for a guy who's used to spending as much time on the ice as he does, like laying on the ice, he would know what to do when the defender falls in front of him. But he looked completely lost. I'm like, man, that's what you do. Come on, dude.
Yeah. It's funny. He comes in on that semi breakaway and like my heart rate doesn't even increase in the slightest.
No,
like at all. It's just like, oh, here he goes, and he missed it. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, it reminds me of you're watching the Olympic figure skating, and some guy's going to try a quad, and he's going to eat the ice, and that's what you expect on man every time he's got a breakaway.
Yeah, he's either going to miss the net or eat shit, right? It's going to be one of the two.
That's exactly it.
I wanted to mention something about Shillington, actually. A couple things about Shillington. So he took that penalty in the first period, and a couple of us were talking in our group chat there about basically just we don't hate, like, I personally didn't hate that penalty at all. Like, Shillington being physical and in defensive position while he's being physical is like a huge thing that I don't think I've ever seen before from him. Even in that year, he did really good. It's nice to see that, and I don't even really care that he took the penalty there because that shows something that I've never seen from him before.
Yeah, flashes of that back that year, but man, if he could ever do that consistently, the guy would be a force.
Oh, absolutely. Also, I don't know if you've noticed this, Chris, because I know you and I have had the same issue with Shillington in his past years is falling over like Mangiapane. I haven't noticed that this year. I think I've noticed it once since he's come back that he's like really fallen over unprovoked.
Yeah, like as far as falling over, I agree. He still pulls out that Bambi on ice at least twice a game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how he's able to stay on his feet sometimes when he kind of gets going. He just looks lanky and awkward. Yeah. But he's managed to stay on his feet, so kudos for him. Yeah. That's what a year and a half in the weight room will do to a guy, right? Build that strength in the legs. And
quick question, getting back to the Devils being a potential partner, and Markstrom's name surfacing. I thought it was funny the other day watching the Devils Twitter feed go nuts for Markstrom. But I mean, he's playing lights out right now with Calgary. Mm-hmm. But does he lift that team where they need to go?
Not without, and like Hamilton's not even like the defensive stalwart, right? Yeah. I don't think he lifts them anywhere this year. I think that because he's got a couple years left, especially like if they can have him and Hamilton and Siegenthaler all year and Hughes most of the year, type of thing, and Luke Hughes takes another step, I think that they could definitely do some damage. I think that they could probably get to the Eastern Finals at the very least, within Markstrom's contract, remainder of his contract. As long as he doesn't pull that thing where he sucks every second year.
I mean, given how Markstrom's been, especially as of late, I mean, you would have to think that he would at least steal 3-4 games for them on down the stretch.
That's true.
For sure. But I'm not sure if that's enough, just because they've got a rookie defenseman playing fucking 26 minutes a night because they don't have anybody else.
Yeah, and they've got 4 points to make up even to make it into the wild card, right? So
I find that team a lot of fun to watch, but I think that they're, especially on defense, their injuries this year just kind of fucked them. But I do think that Markstrom would be the proper way for them to go. I don't even think he would waive for them this year because they're not a contender this year, right? No. He wants to win, right? I could see him waiving for them in the off season because those guys who are injured might come back. But I can't, it just doesn't make any sense. Like waiving to move for the rest of the year for a team that's literally in the same spot in the standings, basically as Calgary is, seems like a big distraction and waste of time for him, right?
I agree. I think he can put up better numbers and increase his desirability around the league if he stays in Calgary because he's comfortable. He knows the defense in front of him. I don't know. Is it just purely coincidence, or is the fact that Jordan Sigalet seems to have less hands-on with these guys, or with Markstrom? That I don't know.
Sigalet didn't have his hands-on last year either. He stopped last year, and also this year it was LaBarbera mostly. But
he had him the year before, and that's
yes,
probably what ruined Markstrom.
Yeah, 100%. So I don't know. I've always thought, and I think most of us have always kind of thought, like, I don't know if it was the quality of goalies that Sigalet's had to begin with. Like Ramo, I thought was good, but was he really a starter? Probably not. Was Hiller past his prime and kind of past the vertigo thing? Probably too late for him, all of the goalies that came through maybe weren't very good, but I don't think Sigalet helped. Like he didn't make anybody better.
No,
he sure didn't. Like I agree. Like Talbot, I think has been better since leaving. Even Elliott was better for a stretch after leaving. And that was a difficult playoff game to go to, that last game of his Flames time. Like that was unbelievable how bad he played there with a couple of just ridiculously soft goals for a playoff game. Just wasn't it.
I just never figured out how that guy kept jobs when every other coach was being shown the door.
Yeah.
No, and you know what? There is something to that. I'm not sure if many people know, but there's a health issue there that's like would look pretty bad. I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's a health issue with Sigalet that I believe would look very bad on the organization if they just kicked him to the curb type of thing. I'm a big believer in kicking people to the curb if they're not good at their job anyways. But I don't know. I think he's done pretty good at the scouting thing because that's what he's doing now. He seems to be an okay scout because, Sergeyev seems all right. This Yegorov seems pretty good. And even like Murphy seems to be an all right, like fringe AHL guy so far. So not a great coach.
I mean, goalies are the enigma, right? When it comes to prospects / drafts and stuff. But I tell you what, if the Flames' sole reason to hang on to somebody is because of health issues, that has been known for more than a decade. I don't know, man. Like that's a terrible
Yeah.
reason to keep somebody. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, there's
you
a
know,
difference between firing somebody because they have health issues and firing
yeah,
somebody that has health issues that can't do his job.
No,
yeah,
and I
And
agree with
and
that.
it's pro sports, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No, and I
yeah.
agree
That's
with that because with pro sports, like winning is apparently the main objective, unless you're Murray Edwards.
I
So
mean, yeah, I mean, this team's. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you almost have to go back to the '80s to find, and even in the '70s to find. You know, this will bore Dylan because he doesn't remember those days. Wasn't even around, but Chris and I do. But I mean, you got to go back to Dan Bouchard, Reggie Lemelin, Mike Vernon. I mean, that's when the Flames actually found goalies through the draft and developed them. You know, Trevor Kidd was a can't miss that I don't know how, I don't know exactly what happened there. Really, he just wasn't as good as they thought he was going to be, but they haven't had
yeah,
anything since then. And they lucked out with, obviously with Kipper, but that's only because Sutter knew what he had and the Sharks didn't.
yeah,
yeah,
But I mean, that's been a long dry spell for that organization from a goalie standard or goalie perspective to actually draft goalies that have panned out and been worth a shit in a Calgary uniform.
yeah.
yeah. I totally agree, and it's going to be interesting to see over the next few years how, once Markstrom's gone, whether it's via trade or whether he sticks around for the rest of his contract. If Wolf gets a chance to see how he's doing. I think he will get a chance at the very latest, starting at the beginning of next year. Also, an interesting thing I learned the other day is because of Wolf's age, even though he has to sign another contract and won't be on an ELC, he is not waiver eligible next year, according to Pat Steinberg.
So
So
they could move him up and down without losing him.
I guess so. Just next year, that's just what I heard on the radio the other day from Steinberg, and I was like surprised because usually once an ELC is done, the waivers become a thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And and going back to the goalie thing, and because I'm a Rangers fan, you look at what they've done with Lundqvist. I mean, they developed Talbot, right? Pulled him out of Alabama Huntsville. Shesterkin, Georgiev. I mean, they've just managed to find goalies and not screw them up.
yeah. Now, did they draft? I can't remember. Did they draft Igor or did they sign him out of the KHL?
That's a good question. But either way, they found him and developed him.
Well, yeah, like either way, that's your scouts, right? Whether it's your amateur scouts or your pro scouts, it's still your scouts. And like Shesterkin, won a Vezina a couple years ago, has been really good throughout his NHL career. And even though he's having a down year this year, it's not like he's bad. Like he's still got a winning record, right?
And I think he's better this year than he was last year.
Yeah. What's that?
I mean, I think he's better this year than he was last year. He was, in my opinion, as a Rangers fan, he didn't steal games like he did 2 years ago.
No. But you thought he was better. He's better this year than last year.
I think he's been more consistent this year from what I've seen.
I mean, you watch a lot more Ranger games than I do, so I'll have to digress on you to that. But I mean, I just think he's a really good goaltender, no matter what way you slice it, right? Like,
yeah.
And goalies, like, the whole goalies are voodoo thing, that's not fake. Like, goalies are fucked. Like, look at Markstrom. Like, he goes from runner-up in Vezina, from bad to runner-up in Vezina to bad to, like, Vezina contender again. Like, from year to year, it's like, with the same team in front of you, it makes no sense.
Well, it's because goalies are weird, right?
Yeah. Shesterkin was drafted by the Rangers in the 4th round, 118th overall.
Oh, what a steal, right?
Yeah, I mean he's proven himself, but I mean like let's be honest, like most of the goalies that have been, that have been worth their weight have been, and none of them are first rounders, right?
No,
like third, fourth rounder. That's pretty typical for a
like you
for a
look at the
goaltender.
ones that have been first rounders, aside from Marc-Andre Fleury, it's kind of like fucking Brent Cron, awesome radio personality, anyways, and like Rick
You will not say
DiPietro,
bad
who
things about Cronny. Come
I
on,
love Cronner. He's a great radio personality.
he really is.
And like Rick DiPietro, who probably would have been pretty good if he didn't, order his made in China bones from China.
Yeah. Hey, but he's still getting paid every July 1 or whatever.
I think
right.
Is it this year or next year that's the last one? Like, that's nuts to me.
Yeah, he celebrates Bobby Bonilla Day too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well,
yeah. But
and then
what do we have?
We go for it.
Huh? Sorry.
Go for it.
I was just going to say, what's next? What's next on the Flames schedule? Is it San Jose at home?
That would be San Jose at home on Thursday.
Do you think
7 p.m.?
Does this start the Flames' typical swoon after a decent road trip, and then they start playing games against teams that they should beat? And I know it's pro hockey, but I mean, come on. But the Flames seem to play down to guys like this or teams like this too often lately.
San Jose, Anaheim, especially Chicago. Like the fact that
Ottawa,
the only time you won
Chicago,
your goalie against Chicago in the last 2 years, your goalie needed to steal a fucking shutout for you is kind of pathetic. And then Columbus, we haven't won against them in 2 years. Like it's kind of pathetic, honestly.
Yeah, like what was it, the COVID year when we couldn't beat Ottawa, and that's all we needed to do was beat Ottawa, and we'd have been in pretty good shape.
Yeah, we're like the only team that couldn't beat them all year.
Yeah,
and we had them like 6 times, and it was like pulling teeth to,
yeah. So I don't know.
That sums up the Flames.
I just worry that San Jose is going to come Thursday. We're going to see a 3-game losing skid against.
Well, then good. Then we can start getting back to what's important to the development of the team long term in the future.
It's fun watching the wins. Like we had those, 4 wins, and like 3 of them were exciting. And you've got new players like Kuzmenko, lighting it up, and you've got Huberdeau who's speeding up, and all of this fun stuff. And it's great to watch, and it's fun to watch, and Markstrom being completely lights out. But like this team is doing exactly what we didn't want it to do at the beginning of the year, which is 9th in the West.
Yeah.
10th in the West.
And we don't have games in hand on the teams ahead of us in the playoff, in the wild card.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Check standings. 10th in the West. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Kyle asks, any idea what a Hanifin return would look like if he decides to not sign? I don't think he's going to sign. I think he would have if he wanted to. If like, I could be wrong. You never know, but I could see it being at least close to Lindholm. I think you're getting a first-round pick. I think you're getting a kind of a project of a either a defenseman or a forward, and you're probably getting either a pick or a prospect out of that. You might also get another pick or prospect, but I doubt that.
The only problem I have with this with Hanifin is the further this goes and he doesn't sign, the teams that are going to be willing to overpay for him for a playoff run are going to be few and far between. It's going to be, your contenders, Boston maybe. I don't know if he fits there. The Rangers maybe.
What about the Devils? Like
he could fill in for Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they'd have to start doing something. They'd have to start doing something, I think, for them to do it. But I think for the rest, from teams 5 through 10 in the NHL that could use him to help them, they're going to wait and make a bid for him in July 1. They're not going to, I don't think they're going to overpay. I think the teams and I don't think they'll even be willing to overpay because they know he's going to be a free agent. They could probably just go get him. But I think your top 4 or 5 teams will pay a little bit more, but I don't think you're going to get the King's ransom that you got for.
What teams do you
No.
think, like I know Colorado isn't super high on Girard. I could kind of see it being a type of thing where you could get maybe a first and Girard, and then you could flip Girard later.
I almost see a guy like Tanev maybe getting you a little bit more than Hanifin because he brings you those intangibles that Hanifin just doesn't bring, especially come playoff time.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think a first rounder for Hanifin, that if this stretches on too long, will be out of the question. I think you might look at a second or a third in a prospect or a player. But I think the longer this stretches out, the Flames' bargaining position weakens.
I agree and also disagree with that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I can agree and disagree with that one. I mean, it's well known that people will just overpay during that that 24-hour period before the trade deadline, and I think it's looking like that's going to be the ultimate time to trade him because I mean it's not looking like Craig's seen an offer that he fully likes, but I mean he's going to have to pull the trigger on something before that deadline hits. I mean we can't just lose him to nothing again, right?
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think both of those guys are going to get moved before the deadline. But
yeah, I think both Tanev and Hanifin will be traded off before the deadline, and then if there's an appetite for Markstrom, I think that's going to be more of a summer thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that with the Markstrom thing. Like, even with New Jersey, like I don't see them wanting to part with their first round pick for Markstrom this year. I could see them trading for him in the off season when it's easier to do business and it's easier for them to clear up cap space and see what their situation is going to be like to start next year and all that type of stuff. And also, there's an off chance that they could have a decent lottery odd this year. And, you don't really want to be shipping that off if you don't have to, right? Here's a question for you guys. What do you you hear all this about Ottawa wanting Tanev. What on earth would they give? What do they have that we would want for Tanev that they would give for Tanev?
I don't know why they want Tanev.
I don't get why they want him.
I don't either.
I mean, they have four first round picks in the next 3 years, so I mean they have plenty as far as picks go. As far as prospects, I don't really see much on there. They would have to free up some cap space to make it work, I would think.
Yeah,
I could. But I could see Hanifin being a better fit there because of his age and still some upside.
No, I agree with that. Especially since Toffoli's coming off too, right? Not that fills a hole or anything like that, but I don't think forwards are what they're missing. I think they could survive without Toffoli.
Foley.
We're talking about New Jersey, aren't we?
Well, you brought up Ottawa.
Oh.
Yeah. That's all right. Have another rhubarb. You'll be okay.
Yeah. We've been talking about New Jersey a lot. Yeah, no, as for Ottawa, I don't even their pick's going to be too high. Hanifin I get, but the rumor has been Tanev. It makes no fucking sense to
No, that's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
them-
Hannafin makes more sense in Ottawa if you're trying to add a piece that can help you make that
Yeah.
build and climb to the cup, right? He's that age group. He's in that age range, and he's got a good skill set that, and I think he would thrive in a place where he's not a 1-2 defenseman. I think he's better suited as a 3-4 that can,
I totally, I agree wholeheartedly with that.
help your
statement.
PP too.
And like honestly, I don't even think they're that short on defensemen. Like when you have, you know, Chikrin and Shabbat and, you know, Sanderson seems to be doing pretty good, and Zub isn't actually bad. He's just more of a fifth defenseman, right? Now Hamonic, I don't know what his contract situation is like, but he's maybe past his prime, and but I don't know, I think it's the Anton Forsberg problem and the Mads Sogard problem there in Ottawa, where they just can't make a save to fucking save their lives.
Yeah, no, there's problems there. But I watched. Did Ottawa play yesterday? I can't remember. I watched Shabbat. I don't watch him a lot, but if some of the mistakes he was making are mistakes he makes often, you're just like, wow.
So this is a thing that I've always kind of been frustrated with when people are like, "Oh, this guy is so good because he eats up minutes." Like Shabbat is a guy who regularly gets 30 minutes of ice time. If Shabbat got 22 minutes of ice time, he wouldn't be making those mistakes all the time, I don't think. You know what I mean?
True.
He probably like everybody did. Fucking Hannafin did today. You know, he's been really good this year, and I saw that today. I was like, shit, that's the first time I've seen him make that mistake in months, right? But every player makes those mistakes sometimes. But if Shabbat wasn't playing 30 minutes, he wouldn't be so tired, and his head wouldn't be out of the game. Like, I think they got to spread it out a little bit more, and maybe adding a Hannafin or a Tanev would help that. And that's what I thought about when they added Chikrin. I was like, well, maybe Chikrin's gonna eat into Shabbat's time on ice, and well, he didn't.
So
What do you?
so we don't think Devils. We don't think Ottawa. Who do you think is the best landing spot for Tanev and or Hannafin?
You know, Vancouver fans would like to see Tanev back there. I'm not.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's where he ends up.
Not unless they move Zadorov.
I mean, I could almost see him. Oh, man, I could almost see him ending up kind of like in Vegas, maybe.
I could see that. You know, obviously not my preferred spot. Like, I don't give a fuck where these guys go as long as they give us the best return. But I don't see Conroy doing this. But I think that the best place, the best fit for Tanev would be Edmonton. They fucking need somebody to do that.
Like, could you imagine Tanev and Trouba?
What's that?
What about the Rangers? Could you imagine a team that has Trouba and Tanev wreaking havoc?
So
that would be cool. Actually,
I've almost linked.
They might fight each other over the number because don't they both wear 8?
Yeah, they do. I've almost linked Hannafin in my brain to the Rangers, but like, where does he fit? Like, he doesn't, like, there's Fox, there's Trouba, there's Keandre Miller, who's an absolute stud of a defenseman too.
Yeah.
Like, do you want somebody who's asking for fucking $7.5 or $8 million to be your fucking fourth defenseman?
No, but I think he fills the void that the Rangers missed when they got rid of Ryan Reeves last year. Their defense weren't as tough in the playoffs, and I think that's what hurt. Well, aside from Gerard Galland's inability to just completely adjust to anything the Devils were doing, but I really think they're missing another guy on the back end that can just punish the opposing players and wear them down physically, and that's what Tanev would bring to the Rangers.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I don't even
they have,
see Tanev as that physical of a player, man. He's more of a positional guy. Like,
but I think in a short run, like a playoff run, I think he's got. I think his edge will. He can. His edge will come out, and his nasty streak will come out.
Yeah,
I can see that.
He's not really physical, but the puck and the goalposts are physical with him.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about that for a second. That was a scary moment. How about Tanev crashing into Markstrom, who both then crashed into the post so hard that the net hit the backboard, and Markstrom got up and shook it off pretty good, but man, Tanev took a little bit to get up, and you're looking at that. And I want to get your guys' opinion on this, because I'm not of the mind that you sit Tanev until maybe 2 games before the deadline, or like 1 game before he gets traded. But what do you guys think on that?
Yeah.
Ash,
I think.
Huh?
You go first. What do you think on the sitting Tanev conversation?
I'm not a fan of sitting guys, but the last couple of games, watching him play a little bit more recklessly and maybe opening himself to injuries, I say sit him to the deadline now.
10 more games.
I'm in that camp now because I don't want to see him get hurt. No, I'm just kidding. I like the way he plays, but
it's scary.
I could be swayed a little bit more to that argument because he's been eating goalposts the last 2 games.
He sure has. What do you think, Chris? Do you sit him?
Absolutely not. Not that he's going to lose stock, but I mean, it's got to be tougher to trade a player that you have to kid glove and babysit and keep off the ice just so he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Right. Like, obviously, the entire league knows what you get in a Chris Tanev, and so I think just let him play, let him do his thing. Yeah. I don't think he would agree with it.
No. You'd piss him off, and you'd piss Markstrom off. You'd piss the team off because he's the heart and soul of the team right now.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
What message are you sending to your team who's like, no matter what we say about, team tank or try and get a top 10 pick or sell or whatever, Ryan Huska he doesn't give 2 fucks about all that. He wants to win, and the team wants to win. Blake Coleman wants to win. Rasmus Anderson wants to win. Andrei Kuzmenko wants playoffs now. Like,
that's clear.
Sitting your best defensive, like the most calming presence on the team, who blocks shots and is, such a friend of your goalie that he literally has, the goalie has painted the guy's missing teeth on his mask before. Like, that sends a shitty message to the team. Now, trading him probably sends a shitty message to the team too, but I think sitting him when he's not injured sends an even worse message to the team, which is, as much as fans say we want to be bad or we want whatever, right? Like, those guys don't want that.
No, I think it shows it's a terrible message for the players that are there.
Culture.
Especially if you don't have a deal in place. I mean, I could see if you're just trying to iron out the final bits of a deal, then sure, that makes sense. But if there's no deal in place, you don't do that. I think it looks bad on the organization. I think the players would not accept it. I don't think they would take it well.
Yeah.
And I don't think trading Chris Tanev looks bad either, personally. I mean, it's a business, and B, I mean, if the players that are there now don't know what's truly going on, then maybe Ryan needs to take them off to the side and kind of explain things a little bit better to them.
Well, I think that's one thing that people forget. Nobody wants to play for a loser. They all want to play and make the playoffs. For fans to think that the players are part of a tank job, that just simply isn't the case.
Never.
No.
No. If it is, you don't want them on your team. Period.
No, exactly.
No, absolutely.
And maybe this is more a question for Chris, because what Dylan was just saying it just struck me. But I mean, it wasn't that long ago that if you were even close to the playoffs, your team was committed to trying to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now fans want you to tank. They don't want you to just sneak in anymore. And
Yeah.
I get it from that perspective. But boy, the playoffs are a whole lot more fun when the Flames are in it and you're a Flames fan, or the Rangers are in it when you're a Rangers fan. When you don't have your team in the playoffs, it's still the best postseason of all sports. But it does miss something when when your team isn't in it. But man, it wasn't that long ago where just making the playoffs and seeing what could happen was kind of the norm, right? Now it's like, if we're not even close, we're just going to sell all our assets and start again.
Yeah, if you're not one of the teams that's considered a contender come the deadline, then you do see a lot of fan bases just folded in and want them to do it. That being said, I've been saying it since the beginning of the year, mostly because of that mediocre kind of just sneak in and then get blown out in the playoffs. Like, I'm just kind of getting tired of that part of it, where
missing every
obviously
other
back
year.
in the '90s, and then going into 2000, making the playoffs was really fucking cool, right? It was just, all of a sudden we get into 04 and it's just like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? The best spring we've ever had in this city, right?
Outside of
There's
'89,
something to be said. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was only 15 when that happened, so I wasn't on. I
You weren't
wasn't
on
at
Electric Avenue that night?
I wasn't on Electric Ave officially, as far as my parents knew. I may or may not have snuck
Oh,
in
I could tell you
a
some
couple
stories
times at
about
that
that
time.
night.
Yeah, but I can see both sides of it, though, right? I mean, obviously, Dylan was here a couple of years ago, and we went to that a couple of the games against Dallas, and I mean, it's unbelievable, right? It's a great time. When we won the first one, lost the second one, I think, Dylan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So even
We got
like
shut
even the
out the
second
second
game,
one.
and even losing the next game was fine, but just the electric vibe in the building, and stuff like that. Even just in the city, it does all that for the city. But there is a lot of us that are just tired of that. Just sneak in and then just getting hammered. And I think it all stems from the hard times we had against the Ducks there. 2015 and 2017. It was just like, fuck's sake, like, what do we need to do? Aside from actually rebuilding and doing the draft route, and just coming out of the draft with some really kick-ass players instead of a bunch of grinders, which, I mean, the grinder mentality was really good, in the early 2000s, obviously, and anything before that. But those days are just kind of disappearing. The game is different. It's not as physical. So you just don't need those guys. You need guys with high skill, high speed, and guys that can just play as a team, right? And that's
I think we were on the cusp, honestly, after that playoff run you were talking about against Dallas a couple of years ago. We were on the cusp, and like, me, I'm not all about living in the past and shit like that, but if those guys had stayed, if Tree Living had managed the team a little bit better and prioritized the players he needed to prioritize a little bit better, I think that we would have been in the midst of being a second to third round team every year right now.
Yeah.
And he fucked it all up, honestly. even he fucked it. He started fucking it up a couple of years before that. 3 years or so before that playoff run even happened, and it kind of took us, where we want to go. As for me, where I want to go as a person who, maybe tank is the wrong word, but I want to, draft a few really high skill players and bring on a new era of players who can sign long-term contracts with us and be, the core of the team for a long time coming, who aren't overaged or overrated or overpaid or anything like that, and actually gets, into the playoffs consistently. I think we were on the cusp of that. And then I think we kind of got a taste of it, and we thought that they were going to stay, and then they didn't. And now we took such a drastic step backwards. It's like stepping off a cliff.
Well, and people forget though too. I think the way the Flames handled the Bill Peters situation, there was so much political pressure to get rid of a guy that had done a hell of a job as a coach.
Yeah.
For a transgression that happened 20 years before. I mean, it's stupid. And the Flames should have had a backbone and said, you know what? I'm not going to condemn a man for his past if he's learned from it. But I think that showed players that they're not going to have your back either.
Well, I don't know how much they stood up for him or anything like that. Like, obviously they didn't, but I think the fact that nobody hired him for years to come, and he had to go through a bunch of off ice training and stuff like that in order to get back to even coaching the Red Deer Rebels or something like that now in the WHL.
I think he's in Lethbridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the WHL, right? It took him several years to get back to that. I don't know if the NHL would have let that happen. Like, if they didn't get rid of him, maybe the NHL would have made them get rid of him.
Do we really think that, given what's going on with the World Junior guys? I don't believe that for a second.
No, and I think if he would have been coaching a U.S. team, the political pressure from the woke mob wouldn't have made the Flames ownership and management do what they did.
Fair enough. I don't think we ever even really. We probably talked about it back then, but yeah, no, that's interesting.
I think that's where all of this stems from. To be honest, is there's been, and then they brought in Sutter and they responded to him for a year and they didn't like him. And I think Huska's done a good job. I like what I see out of the guy. I hope they're on the right path, but they seem to have missed their mark with so many coaches up until Peters, and then they found their guy, and then they had to get rid of him, and then they couldn't find him again. And I made a comment the other day. I think if Treliving, like you had said, maybe managed the Goodrow asset, knowing that, everybody knew he wasn't going to re-sign in Calgary. But I think if you would have got assets that would have showed the rest of the team, I'm not sure Tkachuk walks away if that team's got draft picks and decent players coming back for Goodrow.
No, I agree with you.
That strengthens that lineup from first line to third line. I think Tkachuk's all in on that, because then they also signal to him, we're building around you, not Goodrow. But Treliving,
right.
So there's a couple things.
You put the C on his chest and you say, "You're our guy now. Let's go."
That's the thing, right? I think that not giving him the captaincy was a thing. I think that he mentioned a couple months after he left, he mentioned the direction of the team he didn't like. the age of the team he didn't like. And obviously, like, we can't do anything, or like the Flames can't do anything about the weather and the tax, right? So
No.
those two things were whatever. But I do agree with you on that situation.
But I
As
think
far as
they've made.
maybe
I
if we
think
had
they've
managed
made,
Gaudreau better, and I think that when it, like you were talking about the whole backbone situation, I kind of agree with that. Maybe if they had more of a backbone with Gaudreau, as far as what one thing that pissed me off, even at the time, was like, what do you think he means when he says, I don't want to negotiate during the season? Like, I get maybe giving him a month or two, but then like give him a phone call, or give fucking Lewis Gross, his agent, give him a phone call and be like, hey man, this is a business. Let's fucking do business. And if you don't want to, we'll fucking trade his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. At some point, the manager has to be the manager, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Well,
just,
and I'll be honest. I think they've got a good. I think they've got a good GM. Conroy really showed that he's got what it takes in that in the Kuzmenko deal. And I like what I've seen out of Huska as the coach. So, I know there were a lot of people that didn't think Huska should have been the guy, but
So
and I was one of those too. But
yeah,
he's turned me around.
I have no
Yeah.
problem with Huska. I didn't when we got him. I haven't since. I think he was kind of handed a raw deal, and he's also never been a head coach. So I think it's kind of taken him some time, but I've liked it, to be honest. As far as Conroy goes, I'm going to give him a shitload of credit. I think most of us Flames fans that have paid attention to Conroy at all since he's entered the management group in the first place can agree that he kind of seemed like he was going to be a pushover, and he was going to be too buddy when it came to the players. And
Yeah.
I don't think he is. And for the first time, like, I was born in 1989, so I can't remember back when we actually had good management. So for the first time in my conscious life, I actually believe, when I go to bed at night, that the general manager of my favorite hockey team is not gonna fuck it all up.
Well, you were
And
born
that's
right
a,
at
that's
the
a
end
good
of
thing.
the Flames' good management era, because there was a lot of pressure to put Doug Risebrough in the GM seat after Cliff Fletcher, and that's. I mean, Chris remembers this, and
yeah.
Risebrough was not a good GM either.
No, he
No.
wasn't. He was kind of like Sutter-esque when it came to being the GM, right?
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for the guy, but as far as making the decisions for the club, he wasn't it. So yeah, so Tuxedo, I agree with you 100%. If you look at tonight's game, Backlund had an uncharacteristic game when it comes to faceoffs at 26.7. Sharon Govich, who isn't first line center in any capacity, at 12.5. The only the only thing that kept our 40.9% as a team respectable was Kadri was lighting it up in the dot. He finished tonight at 80%.
Oh wow.
That I think that's one of the keys. I think at one point Rick said that he was 9-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
That to me is one of the reasons why I don't think we're going to be anything in the playoffs, is we don't have that top line center, which is something we absolutely need if you're going to get into the playoffs.
Problem is, there aren't many of them out there.
Yeah.
No, there isn't.
And I mean, to get Kuzmenko, we just traded basically our best center.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I wonder if there's a deal out
And
there.
he's not even a top line center. He
No,
was our
I was going
top
to say
line center, but
he
he's
was.
not a top line center.
Well, he's never been a center. He's a winger. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think Igor Sharangovich, I want to talk about him for a sec. But I do agree, we haven't had a good center. Like, Lindholm was a really good center. He's a 1B on a really good team. But I think Yegor Sharangovich, I want to give him some credit too, because he was off the PK for a couple of games. Once Rooney came back, and I thought Rooney did a good job on the PK. But I like Sharangovich on the PK a lot. He was back on the PK today, and they outchanced the Rangers on one penalty kill more than the Rangers had power play looks, and the Rangers had some good power play looks today. And it was all because of Sharangovich, mostly because of Sharangovich's good takeaways and ability to hold the puck in the offensive zone on the PK. And I just whether he can't win faceoffs or whatever, if you give him a good center who can win faceoffs, I think he could be a guy who is literally power play 1, line maybe 2, and PK 1, which is for a long time to come. And I would love that, man. I'd like.
Yeah,
I think he was. Him and Kuzmenko both are a hell of a find for Conroy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's proven to be a penalty kill specialist, right?
Yeah,
he's got a ton of goals. He was the reason why they hemmed him in for the majority of that 2-minute segment, right? That was pretty impressive to watch him tonight, because I actually forgot that they took him off the PK, which I think is a huge mistake, especially with Lindholm not there. You need another number 1 guy, and for me it's Sharangovich.
Yeah, I think that Rooney did well on the PK. I don't know if I saw him out on the PK today, but I did think that the last couple games he did good on the PK. And even though he was in Suther's doghouse and obviously hasn't played in the calendar year or whatever, I thought that Kevin Rooney has been the best 4th line center we've had this year, like hands down. Not that line is that not that bar is very high. That bar is very low, but I think he's been above average 4th line center for us.
Our 4th line would be everybody else's 5th line.
So you're basically saying he's this year's Lewis?
Sure. Well, he's got a lot more speed than Lewis, but yeah.
I mean, he's 4th line. So like we need to focus on getting some guys in to play that spot. Like even having Rooney as in the penalty kill. I mean, it's it's fun for now. I don't mind it based on who we have currently, but moving forward with the club, I mean, that's not the direction we're going, I would hope.
Oh no, not the direction we're going. I'm just saying that I don't have any problems with him,
And let's be honest too with this. They talk about the depth on the farm. When the guy that you buried on the farm 2 years ago is the guy you're bringing up, there's not that much depth on the farm.
Yeah. This is the answer right here.
Just use all. It doesn't matter who it is.
Just do
use
it,
all
baby.
the picks on centers.
Just do it. We're gonna end up with 4 first-rounders this year, and let's do it. All 4 of them center. Not one of them shorter than 6'2". Let's go.
If you're a good center, you can play the wing. But if you're a good winger, you can't play center.
Right.
Always.
Right.
So I agree.
Draft
centers.
What's really crazy this year? I've seen a few mock drafts from some amateur scouts out there, and I've seen a lot of them have between 10 and 12 of the top 15 picks being defensemen this year, which is very strange.
It's strange.
But that's it. Like, apparently there's 3 or 4 like really top flight defensemen.
What position
There's
is
a couple of
Iginla?
them. What's that?
What position does Tidge Iginla play?
He's a winger.
I think he's a center in the W, but I think he kind of projects more of a winger in the in the pro leagues.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm to the point. I mean, I don't care where the Flames draft; they got to draft that kid.
I feel like it's just meant to be, right? Especially
Yeah.
with Jerome coming in as a advisor for Craig or whatever his role is here.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just. I mean, if nothing else for the story for Calgary, I think it just has to be done.
I think it would energize the fan base and the city a little bit more. Obviously you're not, if you get the first pick, you're not going to draft him with it. But I mean, I think anywhere, if you're if you're drafting 8 to 15 and he's slotted in at 12, grab him at 8.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, if he's the best guy available at that number, then I agree. It's looking like potentially we're going to have a couple of cracks at it in the first round, so I think that might help.
mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the team that grabs a Jankowski and, a couple other idiots that should never have been drafted.
That was Feaster's claim to fame. He was so happy about that pick.
I don't think we need to worry about that. I think Craig Conroy has specifically Conroy has scouted some of our best prospects in the last few years, in the last several years.
Yeah.
And Jankowski was a guy who Conroy didn't even really like, if I remember correctly. And Feaster was just like, no, we got to trade down to get this guy for some fucking reason. But when it comes to Tij Ginla, I want to say this. I believe, from what I've gathered from listening to like Jason Bukala, some of the EP ringside guys, a few of the guys who really watch the draft and watch minor league players, they've been saying that kind of between 8th overall and 20th overall, they're all kind of on the same level. So I could see, if we draft 8th overall, I could see us getting Tij and not even really being an issue.
Right.
I'm a bit like, you always draft best available, but if best available is any of these 10 guys or whatever, then yeah, pick Tij, right?
Yeah.
The one thing I kind of want to bring up here before we probably sign off here, I think, is he is not Jerome. He's not Jerome. And
how do you know?
I think that fans have this hyped up thing about him. And
he's going to be better than Jerome.
What's that?
He's going to be better than Jerome. And I'm putting this up there. Tuxedo, just so you know, this is one of Dylan's least favorite players that's ever been through the organization. So I'm putting it up just for his benefit. That's right. You imagine if Bennett would have turned out. Imagine it, Dylan.
I imagined it for like 6 months, and then I saw him play, and I was like, well, he's not very good. Anyways,
he hasn't turned out in Florida either, so there we go.
That's right. He started out well.
Yeah, he played really good with Huberdeau that one year, but he still only got like 40 points or whatever it was somehow.
Yeah, when Huberdeau had 115. How do you do that with your line mate?
And honestly, like, Bennett's been a lot better lately. Like, I can't even shit on him that much. Like,
I mean, when Dave Semenko
if he was drafted 20th overall, I would have been happy with him. Perfectly fine 20th overall draft pick.
Yeah.
Not 6? Was he 6th?
Yes.
4, wasn't he?
Fourth.
He was 4th.
He's the highest draft pick in Flames history.
Couldn't do a chin-up.
6.
Yeah, Monahan was 6th. That's right.
And Kachuk, I believe, was also 6.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, I gotta run. I've enjoyed it.
Yep. I agree. I just want to ask everybody to smash the like button. Please share the podcast with your friends. We're we're really, really excited about the new platform we're using here at StreamYard and having a lot of fun doing it. For everybody that's stuck around till the bitter end,
Cheers. Thanks
Cheers.
for joining us, Ash, and thanks for
Go
joining
Flames.
us, everybody else.
Go Flames.
And just to quickly answer this, I don't think Peltz is okay. I haven't heard anything, but I think he's probably going to miss a few games at the very least.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Same shoulder.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, though. All right. Till next
Cheers,
time.
guys.
See you from sunny Texas.